So let's say that we want to make this progress bar spruced up. Looks pretty boring right now. Truth be told, I have some assets that we can go ahead and use here. So I've already pre-created these, but hopefully this gives you the idea of how the workflow goes and getting this stuff in and just getting it to work. Luckily, it's not a lot of functionality. It's just a lot of click, drag, cool stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and import my images that I've got on my USB here. Let's see, we've got these two. Essentially, I have two things. One of them is a border to go on top of the health bar, and one of them is a background for the health bar. This is like a heat gauge to suggest that when we're like taking damage, we're getting closer and closer to overheating. So this will actually be, the way I use it, this will be a background to the health bar, so that on my 0 to 1 value, as I'm taking damage, the health bar is going to recede up to the top, and that way we see this like orange sort of creeping up over time. You could do it in reverse. This could be your top value, and then the background looks like it's cooled down, and so you'd be sitting at 0 health most of the game, and 1 health would kill you. Either way works. But in any case, let's change some options on these. As textures, since they're images that we're importing in, we want to make sure that they compress properly, or in other words, make sure they don't look like crap when it decides how to alias it and stuff. I'm going to go ahead to compression settings and change this to user interface 2D. And texture group also has an option for UI. It's not going to kill you if you don't have these settings, but it just kind of helps it to look a little bit better and make sure that nothing gets crunched up too badly. We're telling Unreal explicitly what this texture is supposed to be used for. In truth, because these are supposed to be pixelated and sort of like sharp edged, I'm actually going to use 2D pixels unfiltered for my texture group. This means I get this total clarity, nothing gets like blurred out on the edges. Let's take a really close look at this one. You can see the details are kind of foggy where it's sort of blurring it. If I switch this from UI to 2D pixels, we get that perfectly sharp edge. It won't do any compression on this. Yada yada, I have those settings, but let's actually see them in action. If I want to drag in an image, all I got to do is look at my palette, find the image option, click and drag it in, and then just like any old like static mesh or whatever, I can choose what it's going to draw for this image here. Right now it's just sort of a filler blank box. Where I'm going to find my options to change this are in appearance. It's going to give me this thing that says brush. Opening up this by double clicking on it or finding the arrow will let me pick an image out for it. So I can click on this drop down and find, hey, there's my textures I just added. I'll do HUD full, and you'll see it's very, very squished. Over here we'll see it gives us the initial image size, like essentially in pixels what this was supposed to be sized to. I'm going to use this to change its sizing up in the top here, just match it up. So the size X is 232 by 550. Very cool. Now this looks, appropriate. So this would be up here, and our progress bar will be lined up down this column essentially. So I'm going to resize this just so that it fits in a little nicer. Okay. Now I have a problem. I'm trying to click over to my progress bar, but my heads-up display, like my image border here, is on top. If I want to change how these are ordered, I can click and drag them in this hierarchy list off to the left-hand side, and just drag them around, and that will change sort of what's rendering on top of what. Or I can do it numerically in this panel over here. If I change Z order by number, then I can say have a higher value means it'll render on top, a lower value will go underneath. If I change my health bar to -12, that goes beneath the 0 default value of my image. And then it'll go ahead and update in the hierarchy, or no it won't, it'll just leave it over here in the hierarchy as normal. So you have those two options, either click and drag or just change the numbers. I usually do both. So let's go ahead and make sure the health bar is behind here, and I can use the hierarchy to click on it, make sure that's guaranteed. But this looks boring. I want to get my image in there, right? This time it's not in appearance, it's in this section called style. It's still right underneath the options that are up at the top of the details panel, so just keep opening menus until you find it. In this case, I want my image to be in the background, and essentially the bar will fill up on top of it. So I'm going to choose my background image to be HUD Heat BG. And I need to reduce my percentage to make sure I can see it back there. Oh, we've got a problem. Our bar is going left to right. I need this to go from the top to the bottom. So underneath the percentage option, I can change this from left to right to any one of these things. Fill from the center if I really wanted, right to left to reverse it, or I can go top to bottom, which means that as I'm taking damage away from 1.0, it looks like I'm heating up until the point where I'm totally overheating. Okay. Now, one more thing. Over in here, if we want to choose something that's like our solid color for our fill, that is down in an appearance section. But everything else is up in style, if we want to actually put images in instead of just solid colors. Also, there's this thing called the marquee image. This will take your image and scroll it left to right, looping. So if you want to give it a little bit of oomph, you can do that.
Can you do that with text as well?
You would have to make it into an image first. Oh, I see. Ooh, I don't think that text has an automatic marquee option. That would require something else. If you turned it into, technically, if you turned it into like an image, and then put it into a progress bar, and then made it your, like, everything else transparent. Transparency works perfectly in this stuff, by the way. If you have something transparent in Photoshop, it'll work over. But if you had a text image and then put it into a progress bar, set that as your marquee image, then it would scroll. It's kind of a weird workaround. I'm sure there's another way to do it, but that's at least the most convenient. Let's actually just test this with some programming we had set before. If I hit my X key to damage myself, boom, there goes my health bar. Let's go ahead and just reduce that however I need it. Okay. Yes, so use these things to your advantage. The ability to bring in imported images, to change their order on layering and transparency, to get this really cool stacked, imagery to it. Just go crazy with this.